Here.
Daniel Seavey.
Here.
Cassidy Stewart. Here. Scott Kane.
Here.
Michelle Baroki-Behrman. Here. Mark Paolucci.
Here.
Nicholas Lima.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm now seeking a motion to approve the agenda. Motion from Deputy Speaker Almeida, second from Representative Sears. Is there any discussion on the agenda for today? Seeing no discussion, we move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the agenda is approved. We now move on to item 3, approval of the minutes, November 2nd, 2016. I'm seeking a motion. Motion from Representative Dane. I'm seeking a second. A second from Vice President Zapasnik. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing no discussion, we move to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of November 2nd, 2016, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the minutes are approved. Now move on to item 4, speakers. May Richard Kulata, Chief Innovation Officer. Please stand over here and speak.
Oh, okay. I thought I would get a chair, but that's okay. I don't have a formal speech. I was actually coming here to just have a conversation with you and tell you a little about what we're doing and get some of your thoughts. So let me just start and say thanks for inviting me. It's great to be able to spend a few moments here. I met a few of you on a plane coming back from Philadelphia, I think is where we were, somewhere, trying to get back to Providence on a crazy night. So I've had a chance to meet a couple of you there. Let me just, maybe if it would be helpful, I can give a very quick overview of what the Office of Innovation is doing, some of our recent projects, and then turn it over to you for any questions or feedback you have. Does that sound all right? Great. Office of Innovation, this is something that started, we're almost 1 year in to this project. It's something that the governor wanted to try as a new approach to using Rhode Island as a bit of a sort of a lab state. We like to call it a lab state, where we are a great place to pilot new approaches for tackling tough problems that might be harder to do in other states that are bigger, maybe have more bureaucracy. There's bureaucracy in Rhode Island, but there are states with a lot more bureaucracy than Rhode Island. So having a place where we can try new things out, and also a way where we can shine the light on really good things that are already happening that sometimes don't get the recognition that they deserve. Just a very quick example of that, I was meeting with some of the librarians in the Providence Community Library when I first came, right here in Roberts Hall. They came in to meet with me, and I said, it'd be interesting to think about what some projects we could do with the libraries. I said, for example, New York is getting all this attention because the New York Public Library lets library members check out MiFi hotspots. Right? If you don't have internet, you can go in and instead of checking out a book, you can check out a MiFi hotspot. I said, this might be something that we could try here. And they got sort of very frustrated, and they had this kind of grouchy look on their face, and I said, wow, okay, maybe you don't like that idea. And I said, is there a reason, I offended you? And they said, well, we actually did that a year before New York did. We were the first state to do that, and nobody knew about it. And there's some reasons for it, but there's some great stuff that's happening that I think sometimes we don't do a good job of telling the story. And the reason we tell the story about innovations isn't just to pat ourselves on the back and make us feel good. It's because it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you start to say, hey, this is a place where innovative things happen, then companies or nonprofits or other organizations say, well, we want to go do our innovative thing there too. And it starts to sort of build more opportunities for jobs, for solving tough problems happening here. So anyway, that's my goal. We have 3 filters that I should mention that we use for any project that we take on. The first filter is we have to show tangible results in 6 months or less. We believe in rapid cycle iteration. So we are not in the business of a year, multi-year planning, then a year to go to a long budget process, then another year to get off the ground, and 6 years later we may have a product. We show very quickly, we pilot very quickly the work that we're doing. Sometimes it means we need to take a small chunk, a pilot, and try that out first, and then learn from that and expand it. Right? It's not that we don't want to tackle big things, it's that we think it's important to start small and learn quickly. That's the first filter. The second one is that we use non-traditional approaches as part of the Office of Innovation. So if the approach is to say, just create a reg or pass a law, right? We want to make college more affordable, so we're gonna like make regulations requiring colleges to cap their costs in different ways. By the way, to be clear, it is incredibly important that we have good policy in any state. I'm not minimizing that, but that's not what our role is. Our role is to say, how can we use non-traditional approaches, public-private partnerships, crowdsourcing of ideas, challenges, prizes to get at tackling tough problems. So that's the second one. And then the third one is we don't own any of the projects that we work on. We work with a partner on all projects. And so interesting thing happened when I first came here and took on this role. We had some people that sort of lined up outside my door in some ways and said, well, you should do this and you should do that. We said, well, we're a staff of like 2 people. This is a very small team, and we don't run projects. What we can do is help when somebody else has an idea and just needs some help moving it forward. And so the people that kind of understood that came and said, there's this thing that we've been working on and it's just been feeling like it's just stuck and not sure, how to move over this one hurdle that we have, whatever it may be, not finding the right talent or needing a partner to work on it. And those are cases where we get really excited because we can say, all right, how can we help? How can we help you own the project, you be the innovator, but we can help bring some energy and tools to the table. So there's my overview spiel. Let me just give a couple quick examples of projects we've worked on and then turn it over to you. One of the first projects we took on was a project called CS4RI. It's a project related to providing computer science opportunities throughout the state. Ryan was among the worst in the country for providing computer science at the elementary and secondary level. So we kicked off this initiative, made a very bold challenge, asked all the schools in the state to agree to start offering computer science. It takes a lot of work, and fortunately, many raised their hands. We did a massive teacher training, kind of a boot camp over the summer, trained 300 teachers, and we had about a little over 180 schools this fall started offering computer science, which is exciting. But it's more than just the K-12 piece. We're also looking at things like adding new minors in computer science. We're working closely with Rick on that. Because we believe, as we've talked to the industry, that as students graduate, it's not just getting people that have graduated in computer science, it's getting people who have experience in healthcare, or in business, or in economics, or you go down the list, and also have some computer science experience. So that's one project that we're very excited about. Let me just pick 2 more, and then I'll hand it over to you. Second one is an initiative that we've been doing around college cost. So one of the things that the governor has been very concerned about is how much the cost of college. And as we walked around and actually had some interesting experience getting some feedback from students here on campus, is that certainly any tuition, ways to lower cost of tuition is very welcome. The big pain point that nobody was talking about was the cost of textbooks. And the fact that there were some students that were paying $200, $300 for textbooks. Sometimes they hardly even ever got opened. And so we said, well, let's see if there's something we can do about it. So we did a trial run. We worked with a course here, Biology 108, and looked to see if we could, instead of using the commercial textbooks, if there was a open license textbook that would work. And in that one course, we calculate, it's a little bit hard to calculate exactly, but we calculate that we'll save Rick students about $100,000 this year. And so then we issued a challenge to all of the institutions, all the higher ed institutions in the state, to save $5 million over 5 years by transitioning to open licensed resources. And that initiative is actually led, like I said, we don't lead the initiatives. That initiative is actually being led by the Adams Library right across the street here. And so that's very exciting. That's also been now being copied by several other states, which is kind of fun. Last example, and this is the one that I actually just came from before coming here tonight. RIPTA has, we don't have a RIPTA app. Many of you may have known that if you tried to use RIPTA, and there's no app to help you find. There's a schedule, but you can't, there's an app like we have in other cities or states. And so we said, well, we could take the traditional approach of getting budget funds and doing a procurement and a contract, have a contractor come in and build an app, and then we'd have to try to maintain it. And states don't always have a great track record on technology projects. They're not optimized to be good tech developers, just not what they're really meant to do. So we said, all right, instead of that, why don't we try to do something different? And so we took all of the data that RIPTA has about where the buses are, they have real-time data where the buses are, opened it up, and invited developers and designers from around the state to come and participate in the hackathon, which is happening starting this weekend, and actually build out the RIPTA app, or apps. We hope there'll be multiple apps. So through this process, we'll have hopefully multiple apps that are able to help people find transportation. There'll be certainly better creative ideas than we would have been able to come up with on our own, and provided some interesting opportunities for participants. We have a number of RIC students participating in those on those teams as well, and there's still time for people that might want to join in this weekend. So there, that was longer than I meant to take, but let me pause there and answer any questions that you have. And I would love to, in addition, I'm happy to answer questions, but also about a week ago, I was invited by the URI student government to come down, and they had a number of ideas of projects that they wanted to work on in partnership with the Office of Innovation. So if you have ideas for things that you might want to work on with us, we'd love to hear those as well. So,
If you'd like to discuss, please raise your card. Is there any discussion? All right, Representative Video.
I wanted to know if you worked closely on any projects with RIC students specifically.
So we have a couple projects. The one I mentioned already with the open textbooks was very much inspired by and supported by RIC students. Actually, when we did the launch here, we had a number of RIC students involved with helping explain where and how this mattered to them. It was really, frankly, it was really the voice of RIC students that made that project happen. So that's the first one. And I mentioned just a second ago that we have a couple of RIC students that are at this hackathon. I'm hoping some more will come. It hasn't officially started yet. These are just the kind of prep meetings. So hoping we'll have more there. And then also looking forward to, there's a project that we have not kicked off quite yet. It's still in the works. Looking at personalized learning and how do we create an education system. This is looking really at K-12 for this project, where all students have a customized, tailored learning experience every day. We don't have a school of education in the country right now that's actually focused on that specifically. There are pieces of it that are taught, but no place where it's taught as part of the curriculum. So one of the things that we're in conversations with right now with the faculty at the Feinstein School is, can we involve students and actually kick off a project with students in the teacher prep program currently to figure out how do we design a program that teaches those students how to work in personalized classrooms. So those are a couple. Always interested in others if you have other ideas.
Representative Dane, next on the list.
Come up with something.
So, I guess the elephant in the room would be the RIC Foundation
Oh, sure.
and the fact that your office is funded through that foundation, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. Tell me what you mean by that, because I think there was some misreporting when I first showed up.
Yeah, it's unclear to me. But so I guess what I'm asking is, how is your office funded?
Yeah.
Why is it at RIC?
Totally fair question. So I thought that would be the first question, so I'm happy to take that one. So my office is funded by grants and philanthropic donations. It is not funded by taxpayer dollars, and it is not funded by the Rhode Island College Foundation, despite some inaccurate reporting. Now, I want to be clear about something here, and this is where the confusion happened. When we started this project, we said it's a lot easier to go after foundation funding and nonprofit, sort of grant funding if you're doing good work than if you're like, hey, I have this great idea, will you give us a bunch of money? And so what the Rhode Island College Foundation did, which I'm very thankful for, and it was a lot of foresight on their part, is they said, we will provide some money as a runway to get this up and running, with the agreement that that money would be paid back. So we had a $500,000 set aside to help get the office up and running. We've probably paid, I don't have the exact dollars now, we've probably paid about, probably a little over half of that back already. And we have commitments to have the rest of it paid back by the 1 year mark. We're almost at the 1 year mark. And so we have some major foundations that have stepped up to pay that back. So, it was very, very thoughtful of them to do that, to make it happen. There's also a very small percentage of the funds that we bring in through foundations that we give to the Rhode Island College Foundation just to cover some of the administrative costs of managing the accounting. But the real reason that we did this as a partnership between the Rhode Island College Foundation wasn't a funding question. It was because when we said, if we want to really be creative and innovative and try new approaches, sitting in a traditional government office where you don't even have Wi-Fi that works, right, is a really hard place to try to innovate. It's a really hard place to try to get ideas and have creative projects working. And so when the governor was first talking about whether this would be a role that I would be interested in taking, I said, I think it would be much, much stronger if it was partnered with a university. Because universities are known for being a place where you can try new things out. Look, it's what higher ed research is all about, right? You test a hypothesis, and so there's this culture of how do you test and try something that I think is really valuable. And so that allowed a lot of these projects, the textbook initiative, computer science, the RIPTA initiative, and a number of other things we're doing now, just wouldn't have happened if we were stuck in a traditional government bureaucracy. In exchange, one of the things that I hope, and I think this is happening, but I certainly hope it will continue to happen, is that the projects that we start and kick off bring some opportunities to Rhode Island College. Both opportunities for students to participate in, but also to highlight awesome stuff that's happening here, right? So again, we've had a number of convenings. We have a project that we're in conversation with Apple about right now. And so we've had meetings here where we brought senior executives from Apple to come and meet with faculty and the community here at RIC and visit the campus. We've had a lot of press that has come in through some of the initiatives we've brought out. So we hope, in the end of the day, it kind of shines a spotlight on RIC as a place of innovation, because I believe it is, even though that hasn't necessarily always been the story. Does that help? Do you follow any other?
I just have a couple more
Yeah,
questions.
you go. I mean, your call on that. I guess.
Secretary Cepeda is next on the list.
I don't think keep going.
We can follow up afterwards if you like. I'm happy to continue the conversation.
All right, so something I've been hearing about on campus, like you mentioned earlier, wanting to hear about ideas is, here at RIC, we do serve a lot of non-traditional students, and it's difficult first to get to college and then to continue your education afterwards. Here on the campus, there isn't really a way for students to get GRE prep to continue their education later on, and most of the students here are working students who can't afford expensive prep courses. So it'd be nice to see some effort to help fund or provide some test-taking skills for students.
So I agree. Who would be a good? I mean, we can talk more about it offline, but I'd love for you to think about who should own that project. Again, where we can be really helpful is if somebody said, and maybe it's even this group, I don't know, but if there's somewhere where you can find, and we could think about doing this together, organization on campus that says, that's a project that we want to take on. We would immediately be there to help try to think through how to brainstorm making that work and what we can do to help. I totally agree that that's a tough issue. One other thing I'm just going to slip in related to this is I wrote an article in this last issue of the Chronicle of Higher Ed, and the article was talking about how we traditionally have designed higher ed institutions around needs of, the thesis of the article is that we have not designed higher ed institutions around the needs of students, right, for a whole variety of reasons. This is one great example. I list other examples. And there's some, ranging from how we give out scholarships, right? We give out scholarships actually at a time that's least useful as a motivating factor. We give out scholarships after you've been accepted to an institution. What if we started giving scholarships out incrementally to freshmen in high school as they went through the process, right? It would be sort of like a way to kind of get that same amount of money, but you'd be able to sort of be getting it as an incentive to stay in college. That's one example. One other really, really silly one, but I think is worth just as an indication. Every college enrollment system, of course, class registration system that I've ever seen, has the courses arranged in alphabetical order. But of course, no student on the history of the planet has ever said, I'm going to start with accounting and work my way through until I get to zoology, right? We don't take classes in alphabetical order. So why do we arrange them that way? It'd be interesting to say, what would it look like if instead we had something that looked maybe like a Google Calendar? And you could block off the times when you had work responsibilities, or in some cases, childcare responsibilities, or whatever it is, and then have it at Netflix or Amazon style, recommend what courses might make most sense to give you an optimized path through the system. Anyway, I don't want to take more time on the article, but I would just say the point was to sort of put a stake in the ground saying, it'd be really interesting to start trying some pilots, some beta testing around what it would look like to redesign pieces of the education system around the needs of students. And that's just one perfect example, but there are many others, and we're excited about that possibility.
Representative Video.
No, I'm sorry.
Representative Dave.
I'm gonna ask all my questions at once.
Okay.
So I have a couple.
Okay.
So the first one is, who specifically do you work for? Is it the Rick Foundation, the college itself, or some state department thing? The second is, when we spoke last semester, you mentioned that you were considering looking into taking interns from Rick. I don't know if that's something you've thought about, because I think that would be a good opportunity for students here. And the last one is, perhaps Rick could offer something like, I don't know if it does already, but teaching English as a foreign language certificates, so that students here can get their certifications while they're in college and then go off abroad and teach English to other people. I think that would be a good program for Rick to look into. I think it's the perfect school for something like that. And that's all I have.
Okay, great idea. So let me, I'm trying to remember who I work for. The second one was
Interns.
interns, and then teaching English as a second language or foreign language. So the first one, who do I work for? The real answer to this, and forgive me if it sounds cheesy, but I really do believe it, is I truly do work for the citizens of the state of Rhode Island. I think the question, I get what you're getting at though, is sort of who provides accountability and oversight to the work. And there are, it's jointly, I have joint oversight, joint bosses, if you will. And that's through an MOU, a signed MOU that we have between the governor's office and the Rhode Island College Foundation. So the board of the Rhode Island College Foundation oversees and provides accountability for the work that we're doing, and also provides review of the finances. And so I have a regular report check-in with them. In fact, next week, I think it's next week, I do my check-in with the board, and they, they hold, I tell you, they hold my feet to the fire. And they ask tough questions and make sure that we're using the resources efficiently. Even though more and more of those are now resources that we are bringing in, they still have that fiduciary responsibility. That's how nonprofits are set up. That's the first. And then the second is the governor. And I am equally accountable to her. And she is also, again, I don't know if you've, one thing you get a sense of our governor is she doesn't suffer fools. And she is very serious about seeing progress and seeing goals being met, having progress made. And so I sit in front of her regularly as well and report on how we're doing and what the progress is. So I have joint sort of dual oversight to the work that we're doing. That's the first piece. The second piece is on interns. We would love to have interns. We actually have two, I think, positions that are currently posted, vacancies posted through the job system that we have here at Rhode Island College. By the time we got the funding, again, because we have to raise our funding, so I had to get some funding in order to create those positions. They posted sort of shortly after the semester started, so I know it was harder to, kind of missed our sweet spot, but would still love to have some students. If any of you are interested or know people, please let them know that we are very interested. And either way, we'll have that up again for next semester, so hopefully we'll catch students then if we don't do it, because I realize we're close to the end of the semester this time around. So please spread the word. We do want students. And then the third piece was your great idea about providing training in teaching English as a second language. I think it's an awesome idea. I would also say, so not only does it provide opportunities for students that want to go abroad to teach English, we also have a huge challenge here in the state. I don't know if you're aware of this. We have a huge need for teachers here in Rhode Island who know how to teach students that are coming in with not having English as their first language. And we have very, very few, we have a huge percentage of teachers that are either in emergency cert or just vacancies when it comes to filling those roles. So it's definitely a need. I would love to think about, we can do this with you, if there's a department on campus that seems like it would be most logical for that. Certainly the School of Education seems like it would be reasonable, but we could think about where that would go and approach them and encourage them to consider that. And if they did, again, we would be, I'd be the first to raise my hand and offer help. And I will admit at this point that one kind of is a sweet spot for me, because I actually studied TESOL, teaching English as a second language, and had a teaching certificate in TESOL, and it was really very valuable for me, and so I'd love to see that available for other people as well.
Does that satisfy your questions?
It does.
Next on the list is Representative Hoover.
Oh, how exciting. So I guess my question is in regards to the textbook initiative.
Yeah.
I was just curious, with your history on the textbook initiative, exactly how much opposition do you receive from professors? Because I know in the biology department especially, a lot of our curriculums rely heavily on kind of textbooks that are already in place, and these professors, while I love saving money, looking at different textbooks, looking at different opportunities, I guess I wouldn't want to step on their toes in a way, because I know in order to get a most efficient education, I would rely on the professors. So I was just curious exactly how much opposition, if any, that you've received from professors.
It's a great question. So I have not received any. The only cases where I have, it doesn't mean that there's somebody, grumbling about it somewhere, but I have not heard any. The only cases that I have heard of people who have reached out to me are people who had sort of heard, misunderstood what the program is. We do not believe, by the way, that we couldn't do this. There'd be a whole bunch of problems if we were telling faculty what textbooks to choose. We're not doing that. What we are doing is we're saying we believe it's the responsibility of faculty to review and see if there are open licensed options that are as good or better than the commercial options that they have. And we do think that's a responsibility of faculty. And if they do that and they come back and they say, look, we looked at it, and I know that there are courses, I know that there are domains where they're going to look and they're going to say, look, we looked, there's nothing good there. Awesome, then you should sleep well at night knowing that you have students that may be paying a couple $100s because there isn't anything. And then maybe a follow-on project for us would be to find some money that we could maybe help that faculty member get a grant to actually make a textbook in that space or something like that. But for now, what we're saying is simply, can you look and see and just find out whether there's a good option. In the case of the Bio 108 class, which is an interesting one, the faculty member that was working on that project, the book, by the way, actually was written by, the open book, was written by a former Rick faculty member. And when he did the review, he said, I love that it's free, I love that it's open, but it actually, we picked it because it was the better textbook. And those are the sort of quick wins that we should get. Look, when I used to teach in higher ed, I taught at Brigham Young University, and I never knew the cost of the textbooks that I was choosing for my students. I'll just sort of own that one and admit that. We came in, we chose them, I picked, I reviewed them, and I made a choice. I just never thought to ask what the cost was. And we found that that's actually somewhat common among faculty, is that it's not brought up. When you get reviewed copies, they very carefully don't have the price put on it. And so in some cases, we had faculty that just said, we'd love to know if there's other options. But we heard loud and clear that time is critical on the faculty side. Right? We heard loud and clear say, look, we're happy to do this. If we can find a textbook that's as good or better and doesn't cost students money, of course, no brainer. But I gotta do that work. And so that's why this program is really working through the libraries. And we've asked the librarians at each of the institutions, and all 11 institutions, I think I mentioned, have signed up for this following Rick's example. The librarians are going through and they're looking at the options for the courses. So when the faculty come to meet with their library liaison, they get some support. They say, hey, we teed some up for you, take a look, see what you think, because it really would be a huge burden to just ask the faculty to do that with no help and no support. So anyway, I hope that helps. I think the other thing is as more faculty do it, I think others will say, that actually wasn't that painful. You can get you can save a significant amount of money, even if we only got 10% of the courses. But there, some of the large, high enrollment kind of gen ed courses, we could easily hit our goal of 5 million or more.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Is there any further discussion? Thank you for coming.
You're so welcome, Mr. Speaker. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, only prominent members.
So I would just offer for you, if there are other further questions that anybody brings up or thinks of after the fact, when we're there. I'll say that again in a second. I'll hand it back to you.
Representative Lima.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield the floor to the gentleman from the gallery.
Not sure that would be.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I think he just yielded the floor. And he has the right to speak.
The point of order is well taken. You may speak.
Thank you, greatly appreciate it, and I'm definitely humbled by my ability to participate in this great gathering. And so my question is along the lines of, in light of that there was a considerable research fair that occurred here at the university last year, and your institution has been here since last year. And I felt sincerely disappointed that, and I know that other students besides myself had poured a lot of effort into that essential think tank of effort that went into innovation and identifying existing gaps in the literature and developing new research. What has your institution done to engage in that opportunity, and what could your institution do going forward to engage students around that opportunity? Because that is a recurring annual event, and that's an excellent place for, as you described yourself, to develop new think tank ideas that is already existing here at Rhode Island College. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure, thank you. So by the way, you said my institution, it's 2 people, right? So
Two
I just
people,
want to
okay,
be clear,
so-
we don't have teams of people anywhere. It's me and I have a sort of an assistant that helps. This is the first time hearing about that. I would love to have an invite to the next one. I love the opportunity. I have, anytime my schedule permits, I come to events that I can to learn and hear good ideas from wherever they are, particularly if you've already been, or whoever the group is that's involved has been thinking about where there are gaps. Because I love seeing, where somebody says, hey, we've done research, we've done some reviews, and we aren't finding a good solution for this problem. Love hearing that stuff. So please invite me. I'd love to come. And in the meantime, I don't know when the next one is, but don't wait for that. I'll give you my card as we walk out. If you want to send me a summary or point me to some materials, I'll look at it in the meantime.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that satisfy your discussion?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is there any further discussion? Tom, did you?
I'm just gonna yield my time.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Okay, and Mr. Speaker, I say thank you very much for the time. And I would also say, what I was starting to say is, if anybody has other thoughts or things they think of afterwards, I don't disappear when I walk out of this room. We have an office that they've given me in Roberts Hall temporarily, and we'll have some other space that we'll come to, but I'm up on campus quite a bit. Easy to reach by email. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have other questions or thoughts.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
We will now move on to item 5, open forum. Is there anyone here for open forum? Is there anyone here for open forum? Is there anyone here for open forum? With no one here for open forum and no one signed up for open forum, I declare the open forum period closed. We will now move on to item 6, officers' announcements. We'll start with item B, Vice President Cepeda.
Hey everyone, I actually have a message from President Rosario, and he says, Parliament members, I am sorry I'm not here this evening, but I am home recovering on my doctor's orders. I want to wish everyone luck in their final exams. I strongly encourage everyone to recruit new members during their final weeks of classes and during winter break. This will make it so we can have a fruitful spring semester, open to more perspectives. It is our duty as student leaders to cultivate leadership, and there are plenty of students with something to say. Let's grow and evolve. Hope to see you all at the holiday party. Warmest regards, President Rosario. Now, as for my announcements, I hope everybody had a great holiday, and I hope you guys have good exams. And they're coming up, and I know we're all getting stressed and crazy. Other than that, I'll see you guys at the holiday party. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item C, Secretary Spade.
Hi everyone, so as Vice President Zapasnik mentioned, the holiday party is next Wednesday. If you haven't RSVP'd yet, please do so by tomorrow at 3 o'clock when the office closes, so I can get those final numbers in. Everything's done, and the Student Organizations Committee has worked really hard, so I hope you guys turn out and see the efforts they put in. We've also planned a finals coffee break during finals week from the 13th to the 15th. It's going to be on the quad in front of the Adams Library. We're going to be there from noon till when we run out of coffee. So if you want to come by, if you forgot your wallet at home and need to get some coffee to stay awake while studying, come grab a cup, tell your friends. We're using it as a way to promote student government. We got some nice coffee sleeves with our logo on them, so to get the word out that we do like to have students passing their classes. Something else is the stories are officially on Friday, April 28th at Crown Plaza in Warwick. So save the date. Tell your friends that are on the executive board of other organizations to keep that day open so that they can come and join us and have some fun. And I still have student prominent seats open on SOC. So if you want to help pick a menu, pick some decorations in the theme, and help get some new clubs started here on campus, feel free to join and come up and fill out our committee appointment sheet. Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, Treasurer Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First off, there's still an open seat on the Finance Commission for Parliament seat, so I'm looking to have that filled if anyone's interested in joining the Finance Commission. Aside from that, a little status of the general fund. Opening balance of July 1st was around $400,000. so far this semester, not including today. We've given out over 120,000. We've had some other deposits, and we expect I'd say the general fund is relatively healthy. And if anyone wants any more numbers in detail, they can see me after the meeting or during my office hours. I just want to give that report out there that I wouldn't caution the Finance Commission too much as far as yearly allocations that they normally give out. I wouldn't be careless with the money, with the funds either. Not having a major concert the last 2 years has led to some funds filtering over previous years. But I would, suggest that they still take every request seriously and make sure that the funds are being spent properly. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Next is Speaker Hurd. I have 2 leaves. My first leave is from Representative Stewart. Mr. Speaker, I am requesting a retroactive leave for November 2nd, 2016, due to family issues. I'm seeking a motion to approve this retroactive leave. Motion from Representative Dane, second from Representative Sears. Is there any discussion on this leave? Hearing no discussion, we move to a vote. All in favor of approving this leave, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? Representative Stewart abstains, and the leave is passed. I have another leave from President Rosario. He writes, Speaker Hurd, I am requesting a leave for today's Parliament meeting. My doctor has ordered that I rest and recover from my fall last week, and I am doing that. Sincerely, Jose Rosario, President. I am seeking motion from Representative Alvarez, second from Treasurer Lima. Is there any discussion on this leave? Hearing no discussion, we move to a vote. All in favor of approving President Rosario's leave, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? And the leave passes. For my announcements, I'm going to be speaking later, so I'll keep it short. I have 3 Parliament seats open on the Bylaws and Adjudication Commission. Having more members makes it easier for us to meet, believe it or not. You'd think more people would make it a little more complicated, but it doesn't. So I appreciate if you're interested in bylaws, like green policy, join my commission. And that's all for my announcements. Move on to item F, Deputy Speaker Almeida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a few quick announcements. We had a couple of constituent services meetings, and so far we have a few initiatives today we discussed, which is also my next item. New professional development, career development opportunities. I've been working with administration and faculty alike to kind of give us a gateway on classes and things of that nature. Because what I've been hearing from students is a lot of people feel like they've just been thrown in a pool and expected to swim sometimes when it comes to a direction as far as career and classwork goes. So we're working to identify solutions for that. When I have more speak to Parliament on solutions that will arise, I will bring it forward. There are a couple more seats on commission and services, so for Parliament members, so if you are interested, please feel free. I would love to see us at capacity. Hope everyone does well in your finals and has a great holiday, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 7, Constitutions and Organization Conference Reports. Item A, Organization Conference Reports. Number 1 is the anchor. If the anchor members would please stand and address the body, I will pass it back to the anchor.
Can I stand up my seat? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So this year the anchor went to Atlanta. I myself went, my Vice President Shane went, the Secretary Christie went, and we brought our layout editor Kaylee and our graphics editor Andre. And those 2 members were chosen because they had been with us for half of last year. We had a lot of brand new editors this year, so we didn't get to bring too many other people with us. And we had a really nice time. The conference the fall conference is a little smaller, but that means that we have more one-on-one time with a lot of the advisors and the critiquers that were there. We almost every day had a block of time for a critique where we sat one-on-one with either a professional in the field, a professor or an advisor from another school, or various different, adults that would go over our paper with us. They went over everything from like actual layout to the structure of our organization on campus. We learned a lot of things about how other clubs or organizations and newspapers are, what their relationship with their college and with their student government is like. And we also learned a ton about just like really basics, really, you know, how to best report on things, how to best take pictures, stuff like that. And we also came back with a lot of really cool samples and literary magazines and just material from other colleges. I also got to network with a couple other EICs and just writers and everything from other places around the US, which was fun too. And came home with a couple business cards that I've been checking in on every so often. But in the conference report, I listed every single one of the panels we went to, and we went to a lot. So, I mean, we filled our days with trying to get in as many as we could. And everybody, the 3 executive board members who wanted to, went over like basically what they learned or their favorite panel that they went to. So, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm seeking a motion to approve the conference report. Motion from Representative Sears, a second from Treasurer Lima. Any discussion? Secretary Cepeda.
Quick question. So did you guys come back with any ideas that you think you're gonna implement next semester for the paper?
Yeah, we came back with a lot of, well, my layout editor and my graphics editor came back with a lot of really, I don't want to say basic, but like smaller, like little things like this is how we can improve, like streamline the graphics process. This is how we can streamline like the actual layout itself. And we also, like I said, we came back with a lot of different samples from other other newspapers where like they didn't look like newspapers. They looked like art magazines or something like that. And so they kind of came back super excited and were like, let's do this crazy thing. So, I mean, if they want to do a redesign, I want them to wait till like next semester. But yeah, I mean, they're really excited about that. And we also came back with a lot of inner organizational structure type ideas, you know, different things like team building strategies. I mean, we came back with a lot of different like, I came back with a couple of lawyers' business cards because there's a lot of, with the talk of like safe spaces on campus, as well as like Freedom of Information Acts and all like different specific to student newspaper laws, I guess, that I wasn't aware of, and I don't know, I hope to maybe look more into in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. With no further discussion, we'll move to a vote for approval of this conference report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? Representative Dame and also Representative Yo abstain. With that.
Point of order, I think the speaker must abstain as well.
Abstain.
Sorry. Speaker Hurd also abstains. With that, the conference report is approved.
Thank you. Move on to item 2, Resident Student Association. Resident Student Organization.
It is association.
Oh.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, hi, I'm Colton McAdams. I'm the National Communication Coordinator for the Resident Student Association. I want to start off by saying thank you to Student Community Government for funding our conference trip. We attended the NEACUR Regionals 2016 conference in SUNY Oneonta, and we brought myself, the Resident Student Association President, Brendan Pavie, the NRHH representative, and 3 delegates from RSA. We at the conference we were able to attend a lot of different programs about sustainability, team building, also how to put on active and passive programs at institutions and colleges to kind of help better our organization and also the leadership skills within our organization and kind of spread them to around the college as a whole. So at the conference we also learned a lot about parliamentary procedure on both an active and a passive program to other colleges and universities at the conference, which was a first for myself and the other, our NRHH representative who assisted. And I think it was a very beneficial conference for our organization. I look forward to our next one, NEACAR minis in the spring. Are there any questions?
Before we discuss, I'm seeking a motion to approve the conference report. Motion from Representative Dane, second from Representative Seavey. Now, if you have a discussion, please raise your card. Secretary Cepeda.
What's the difference between a passive and active program?
An active program would be a program in which you involve, it's kind of like involving students in the moment. A passive program is one that you can leave up and students can participate. So think of it almost as an event that would be put on so an active one would be an event where someone would go and participate and learn something. A passive one is like almost like a board that could be left up that students could participate and take knowledge from themselves. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Without any further discussion, we move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the Resident Student Association conference report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the conference report is approved. We now move on to item 3 in this list, Bachelor of Social Work Organization. Laurie, tell us about your conference.
How you guys doing today? You want to move this? Oh, okay. As the president of the Bachelor of Social Work Organization, Scott Bierman. I'm Michael Galpo. I'm the vice president of the Bachelor of Social Work Organization. I also attended this conference. You guys can go ahead and pass that around and take a look. That's what everybody who attended the conference received as a credit for our experience. That certifies us for 6 CEUs, which are continuing education units, which usually professional social workers are required to obtain a certain number of those every year in order to maintain their license and certification. So part of this experience is to get exposed to what we're going to be continuing to engage in as part of our ongoing practice. And so also part of this has been to nurture and develop and start a new relationship in a new way with the National Alliance of Social Workers. And so part of that process has been, reaching out to Rick Harris, developing new training opportunities with Rick Harris. We have another opportunity because of our involvement with the conference and the conversations that came about from that to open up some free grant writing trainings, which are actually offered as a course that people have to pay to take at Salve Regina. He's going to open those up to our organization for free as an additional outcome of our attendance at this conference. So part of the negotiation stage of this, I had met with Rick Harris in his office, and we crunched some numbers. So one of the things that came out of the onset of this was that we had initially scheduled for 10 seats to the conference. I went down and I sat down with him and we crunched numbers, and he ended up actually conceding us 14 seats to that conference. And we had 12 attendees with 2 medical leads who were not able to actually attend that conference for very serious personal reasons, and those were excused. But aside from that, we got more than our money's worth in terms of the conference attendance and what we paid for. So I'm gonna actually hold off on this because I'm gonna do my presentation a little bit backwards because I'd like to close with that. So I'd like to thank everybody again for having us here and giving us the opportunity to present what we learned. I'm gonna move to the end of the presentation that's not this because there were 2 different segments. The first segment was taught by Rick Reamer, who's actually one of our own resident faculty, who is a renowned expert on the realm of professional ethics in the field of social work. He is one of the co-authors of the Code of Ethics for the field of social work, period, nationally. So this is nationally renowned. So this conference holds a lot of significance in terms of professional validation, and the methods that are prescribed through the conference, as you'll see here, are very specific. And this presentation that I'm going to deliver to you here was actually commuted to the CCA program, which is a program here at Rhode Island College. It's a new developing program to facilitate educational opportunities in a higher educational setting for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities with severe challenges. And so a lot of the ethical lessons that were learned at the conference were things that translated directly to my paraprofessional setting here at the college and were used in professional development in our one-on-one supervision and group supervision, and was delivered to develop and embed the program as they're still in a continued process of program development. They're still in the beginning stages of coming up with all their guidelines and different things that help shape their process. And so having a reference to the most current ethical standards, both state and national, was something that was an extreme benefit, not only to the people who participated in the conference in shaping their practice, but this also got communicated directly back to the college and made a better atmosphere here at the college for other organizations within our purview. So I would like to just jump to the ending of it. A lot of what we cover in our education is current in its methods. And so the second half of this program here was on cultural diversity. And the cultural diversity that they were specifically addressing was the transgender, LGBT, and now they've added Q and Q to the list of growing acronyms. And so there's a lot of different things that came out of that training that are consistent with the education that's being delivered here at Rhode Island College. Part of that is the emphasis on language and not using terms that describe people as adjectives or as adverbs, like saying somebody's transgendered. Like that's not an appropriate way to address like somebody's state of being, how they identify. So it was really important to address people by who they are, by being people first, and then how you identify second, right? So really emphasizing like people's strengths and that they're human first. And so that framed a lot of the discussion that came around issues that transgendered people who are identifying as transgender face in the school settings and the complications that practitioners have to face within those settings around these issues. One of the things that came out that was very new to me was that as a school practitioner, you are not obligated to disclose to parents how somebody identifies, whether it's their sexuality or their gender identity. Only in very specific circumstances is information disclosed, and usually it's to law enforcement officials when person's physical safety or somebody else with a plan and means physical safety is at jeopardy. And that's consistent across the school setting. Now, it's been made clear that this changes as you cross state lines. And being in such a small state, it's really important to understand those distinguishments. But there's a lot of support that comes out of Rhode Island for people within these communities. The Thunder Mist Agency has done a really incredible job of providing wraparound supports and really protecting people in their discovery process and exploring what their gender identity means and providing a safe space for doing that and how to provide that safe space. And then also creating alliance programs. One of the things that they really emphasized strongly was that if you don't have an alliance program at your school, you need to go back from that conference and start one today. That was how important they felt it was to create alliances across the table. That people that identified differently by their gender, that didn't identify with binary gender, had welcoming communities of people that understood that difference does not mean wrong, difference is difference. And we celebrate diversity as Americans. And as part of the social work profession, that's part of our calling and our obligation to empower people from all different communities, regardless of whatever their different statuses are, whether it is racially aligned or whether it is binary gender aligned. Those communities that are disenfranchised and disempowered, we're particularly called to serve and give them special attention to make sure that we're able to kind of level that playing field so that way everybody has equal opportunities. And so part of that education is being able to bring that to the existing field of social work and people who went through school 15 or 20 years ago where this curriculum may not have been something that was prevalent in their education. So it was really empowering for the social work students and for me, somebody who attended the conference, to feel like the stuff that's in my education today at Rhode Island College matches what's being taught currently to existing professionals in the field. So while I didn't get as significant of a takeaway from that as I did from the professional ethics, the empowerment that I felt as somebody getting an education now in a school of social work was significant because I felt that I was getting an education that was relevant and current to what's being taught to people practicing in the field. And that was excellent. So I'm going to move on to my presentation on professional ethics and disclosures. And part of that was knowing exactly where to go and research. What does the law say? And how do we validate our professional opinions? And so a big part of that is looking at FERPA and HIPAA. And what is the difference? And how does that apply in a school setting? So the FERPA, if it's in its long form, is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And if you get into the nuts and bolts, it's 20 USC 123.2G 34 CSR Part 99. And if you look that number and that designation up on your internet, that's going to pull you right up to the exact section of the law that you need to be looking at if you're in an educational setting. And it's a federal law that aims to protect the integrity of student records across the United States. FERPA mandates are applicable to all schools that receive funding through various programs of the U.S. Department of Education, including Rhode Island College. This makes FERPA similar in terms of being a comprehensive regulation, and just like HIPAA, it's applicable to covering all types of protected health information, or PHI, and that nearly every educational institution with student records this applies to. However, FERPA is a little bit different from HIPAA, and it's why HIPAA is usually not used in elementary and secondary education settings, and HIPAA is actually primarily designed to be an electronic information security safeguard. So its primary function was that, and then it became expanded to cover all of these other additional kinds of information. I'm going to jump through this a little more quickly than I normally would, just for you guys' brevity of this presentation. So there's a few qualifying exceptions that are really important, and of course, that's how I feel sometimes when I'm coming to school on my GI Bill, but there are other kinds of protected information as well. And that was the point I was getting with that. And so in order to find the up-to-date information, this is all you have to do. You go to qualifying exceptions, 34 CFR 99-31A, and then you click on the link for the ed-gov. And that brings you right to the federal law. Now mind you, there's a distinction between federal law and state law. State law has different things, and sometimes in certain areas, state law will supersede what's stated, or it'll usually elaborate on what's done in the federal law. So for additional information, also in expanding curriculum, you can also look at IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that also expands on other curriculum methods and ways to develop, trying to engage students that have alternative learning strategies. So FERPA common exceptions, and these are ones that I kind of ran through for the people in my program because this is what applied directly to that setting. An educational agency or institution may disclose personally identifiable information from an education record of a student without consent required by 99-3 if the disclosure meets one or more of the following criteria. And this is something that even the people in the program where I'm situated did not know. Like, this was new information to them. And some of the takeaway for me was I got to actually have a professional consultation with Rick Reamer and do what he recommended, which is to follow up with documenting everything when you have a potential ethical quandary or an ethical complication around disclosures especially. And to really find in the law, which is what is encouraged, your validation for your professional judgment. And really, there's a lot of gray areas around professional judgment, but usually the law will spell out pretty clearly what you cannot do, and then everything else is just justifying your professional judgment by going to seek additional resources, getting professional consultation, talking to an expert like Rick Reamer. So I'm not going to walk you through this entire presentation because I realize this is quite a bit of verbiage, but there are some additional state laws. For Rhode Island, it's Article 5-37, the Confidentiality of Healthcare Communications and Information Act. And so there's permitted disclosures and exceptions here as well. And one of those is that, you know, people that work within the same educational setting can share information, but only to the minimum extent that's necessary to get the desired effect for the benefit of the person who's receiving the education services. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. Remember, when in doubt, seek professional consultation, document everything, and thank you for sitting through with me at Ninja.
Thank you. I am seeking a motion to approve the conference report of the Bachelor of Social Work Organization. Motion from the Vice President Zapasnik, second from the Speaker Almeida. Is there any discussion on this conference report? Secretary Cepeda.
I wanted to say thank you for your presentation. You clearly benefited from it and you know what you're talking about. I'm glad we were able to bring that back to the students of the Bachelor of Social Work organization. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. We move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the conference report of the Bachelor of Social Work Organization, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the conference report is approved. Thank you. We will now move on to item 8, reports. Item A, Finance Commission minutes, meeting minutes of November 2nd and November 16th, 2016. Treasurer Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Should I take these minutes one at a time, or?
One at a time.
All right. Well, first, November 2nd meeting, if anyone has any questions, we can discussion, but I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 2nd.
Motion from Treasurer Lima, second from Representative Sears. Is there any discussion on the minutes of November 2nd, 2016? No discussion. We move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the Finance Commission minutes of November 2nd, 2016, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2016 are approved. Treasurer Lima.
And again, Finance Commission approved the minutes of November 16th meeting, and for that, I'd like to ask if the body accepts them with unanimous consent.
Is there any objection to the meeting minutes of November 16th, 2016 being accepted with unanimous consent? Hearing no objection, they are accepted with unanimous consent. We now move on to item B, Council of Work Report, Treasurer Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The President prepared this report, and I was also at the meeting, as I'm also on the council, as the other student representative. It was a fairly lively discussion. Faculty advising was discussed, and it's clear that there's some pushback by some faculty members there. So it's really interesting to see how that works out. I'm of the personal opinion that professional advisors would be great to help the students out around college. However, if we really want to make that an initiative and make sure the college goes through with professional advisors or advising students, I think there needs to be a larger student voice for the administration. Aside from that, the Vice President of Administration and Finance was at the meeting and gave an update on the GAGE project, hoping to have it completed by April 1st and then classes by summer session 2. So that was interesting to hear about. And some other information in the report, but those are really the two major issues that the recounts have discussed. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept this report.
Motion from Treasurer Lima, second from Representative Sears. Is there any discussion on the Rick Council report? Representative Booth.
I was just curious if you could shed some light into I guess it's for my own benefit, I was just curious. Why exactly some trees may be removed and then also replaced later on?
The way that Vice President Pinterell explained it is that they're going to basically go around and ask, how people's opinions on these trees. But one of the main points he made was the roots of some of these trees dig into the foundations of buildings as the trees kind of age. And he also made the point that I can't speak for him, but this is what he said, is that for every tree that comes down because of the concerns to its location, that the college will be planting the tree somewhere else, at least one or two trees. That answers your question.
Yes, thank you, I was just curious. I assume so.
Is there any further discussion on the Rick Council report? Hearing no discussion, we move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the Rick Council report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the Council of RIC report is approved. We'll now move on to item C, Cabinet meeting of November 9th, 2016 report. Chief of Staff, Representative Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, everyone. So in a nutshell, this was the first cabinet meeting that we had with everyone. It was held Wednesday the 9th in the student government chambers upstairs. Started off with me announcing that I'll be planning the retreat for all members of parliament and executive members of the student community government. Basically the way I outlined it, it's kind of all in my head right now, I'm trying to put it on paper, working alongside President Rosario. I'd like to break it down into 4 segments, having it end all in all with a mock parliament meeting. I think it would give everyone an opportunity, basically, kind of like if you all remember Schoolhouse Rock, you know, with the bill, trying to figure out, you know, how to get there. So it's kind of basically tracing the path of a resolution and basically gives everyone a chance to learn their role in Parliament, and basically it's your way to make mistakes there, so that way, you know, kind of like auto tuning. From there we went on to the PR director, Veronica Brimpon. She was working on certain things that they were going to be advertising, such as the town halls, class elections, and Group Boston, which will be coming up. They don't have all the details for that yet, but both as of November 9th, when this report was written. Also, the student organization coordinator, Jason, announced that the holiday party will be next week, Wednesday the 7th at 7 p.m. at Osteria Toscana on Atwood Avenue in Johnston. He's also working on program evaluations to create the eligible events list for the Storgy Awards, which will be held at the Crown Plaza in Norwood. Also, the comptroller, Ryan Santana, is currently working with the treasurer to plan a club treasurer workshop, basically explaining to all the club treasurers funding policies and other things, basically making a smoother process. You know, they're very difficult processes that, you know, hopefully will be smoothed out. We also discussed finally effective ways of communication amongst the cabinet members. So we're working on effective communication, and we sent a tentative meeting on Wednesday the 7th at 12 noon. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move to pass.
Motion from Representative Sears, second from Treasurer Lima. Is there any discussion on this report? Hearing no discussion, we move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the cabinet meeting of November 9th, 2016 report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the report is approved. We will now move on to item 9, new business. Item A, RIC tuition increase discussion. Speaker Hurd. So on, this was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, most of the members, all of the members of the Executive Council here went to the Board of Education meeting at CCRI, most of the members, to speak out from a student perspective against the tuition increases. Just some numbers. For in-state tuition, CCRI is expected to increase $299 per year. RIC is expected to increase $570 per year. URI is expected to increase $908 per year. For out-of-state tuition, RIC is expected to increase $1,422 per year. For financial aid, RIC is expected to increase from $16.6 million to $17.6 million. And the Pell Grants is expected to increase from $5,845 to $5,920, with that being a $75 increase for the Pell Grants. And we're bringing it before this body to hear any comments you have on this. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Is there any discussion?
I think it's important to note that the Board of Secondary Ed was responsive. They were aware of the difficulties that will come for students with this tuition increase, but they didn't have a choice as as to request the increase because the college needs the money to cover expenses and make sure everything's running efficiently. I think the next step would be to petition to Governor Raimondo about pushing that the state assembly allocate more funds to education, and make sure that they're aware that students here are more likely to stay in Rhode Island, and they need to make sure that they're educated and don't have debt, and don't have to go out of state to find jobs that are going to pay them enough to pay the debt that's going to be accruing if tuition continues to rise. So it's definitely important for us to find a way to put pressure on the state to cover the cost of an education.
Representative Video.
Well, I was going to pull up some numbers that I have on my phone, but I feel like I'm preaching to the choir rather. Rhode Island is one of 2 states that spends more on jails than it does on higher education. We're 47th in the nation for money allocated from tax dollars and state funding to higher education institutions. And it's kind of embarrassing that the burden is first being asked of the students, and no clear or really any, initiatives are being put forth by the state, especially when Governor Raimondo has been to the college on multiple occasions in this past semester talking about the affordability factors at Rhode Island College. She's come and spoken about textbook initiatives, how we can't spend more on textbooks, but then we'll ask students to pay $500 more for their schooling. She's come and talked about her small initiative to provide scholarships, the last dollar scholarships to students, but then again asks for a tuition increase, or doesn't have any sort of, again, clear directive to increase spending. And also the Board of Secondary Education, Jim Purcell, a year ago on the student debt crisis in the United States, was quoted saying that the crisis isn't just about kids who are in school or kids who are going into school, it's about our larger economy as a whole. If you burden people who are just beginning to start their lives with $30,000 in debt, you hurt the economy. That's just how it works. They can't buy new cars, they can't buy new houses, you ruin their credit. Rhode Island is also second in the nation with student loan debt, I believe, averaging at about $30,000 when they leave school in debt. So I understand that Rhode Island College needs the money. We are underfunded, and I'm sure that our tuition dollars are going to be spent on worthwhile things. But I'm sort of upset more at the, state leadership that has put the college and us in this position.
Secretary Smith.
Bouncing off what Representative Video said about affordability, it's great to hear that Rhode Island College is still one of the most affordable colleges in the region, but there's nothing here in Rhode Island that's making it any easier for me to pay for the tuition increase. One of my peers that I took a chemistry class with wrote a letter that President Rosario was so kind to read to the Board of Education. She works about 50 hours a week and she's a full-time student, and she wants to go to medical school, and she has a great GPA. And she's wondering where she's going to find the time to work the additional 50 or 60 hours to be able to cover that $500 to $600 increase while still maintaining a good grade point average to become a successful alumni of Rhode Island College and show people the education we offer to people. So it's important to also emphasize that even though it's still affordable, there's nothing going on in Rhode Island to make it any easier for us as students to pay for that increase.
Alumni Representative.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, one question for Speaker Hurd. The numbers you gave a little bit different from what I heard reported in the media a couple of weeks ago. I imagine that it might have been adjusted since. Was it $500 per year or per semester? The increase?
This was from the official statistics that they handed out at the meeting, so I grabbed a couple of the handouts that they were passing around to all the representatives on the Board of Education. The number for in-state tuition for Rick was $570 per year, and for out-of-state for Rick it was $1,422 per year.
Thank you. So even $500 per year, that to someone who doesn't really understand the true cost of higher education, maybe looking in from the outside, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but for a freshman that might be starting school next year, we compound that over a course of 4 years, it's really a $2,000 increase. And that assumes that tuition doesn't rise over the course of their 4 years or 5 or 6 years here, which of course is laughable. Tuition goes up at minimum every couple of years here, sometimes a little longer, but usually the freezes don't last very long. So when you factor in other compounding factors such as interest, you really, a $500 increase in 1 year can turn out to be thousands and thousands of dollars over the course of a 4-year education for a student that they have to pay back before they can really move on with their life. And I think that's a significant part of the argument that has to be made by this body and by the allies of this body when fighting these tuition increases, is that while a $500 increase may be incrementally small from someone in the outside world looking in, really it's much more than that in the long term. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Dane.
Thank you. Speaker Hurd had mentioned that along with these tuition increases, the college will be getting more in funding for student aid, and there are people pointing to that as an offset and saying that these tuition increases are okay because of that. And I think that we should not accept that argument as something that is okay. I feel that the administration should be pushing harder to the state that tuition should not be increased. I understand the school needs money, but it should not be on the backs of the students in any way, and increasing aid to them and saying it's okay as an offset is laughable. It's not, it's ridiculous. So I really think that with the new administration, President Sanchez should really work harder and really push the General Assembly to fund the state more, fund the college more. That's all I have to say.
Speaker.
Thank you. I would love to point out that our student media organizations, the Anchor TV, were there covering the meeting. We did great coverage. And I'd like to again say that our voices don't end in this room. The more we go out, the more we preach our concerns, the more we get taken seriously. And the students that we represent really need that. And at the meeting, there was 2 CCRI students in attendance, and this was held at CCRI. They were from the CCRI student government. There was 1 student from URI that spoke before the body during an open forum, and Jose and I spoke before the body during the open forum period. Afterwards, we were both interviewed by Brian Crandall on the news, and that gets our voice out there. You know, Rick's student on the news speaking out against tuition hikes. That's what we need. Thank you.
Representative Sears.
Thank you. So my take on all this, squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, as been said from the speaker, you have to make your voice heard. And not only do we make our voices heard here or on campus, I hope that everyone in this room knows who their state senator and state representative is. And you've also heard President Obama's "Don't boo, vote." Voting's already taken place. I say that the best, most effective way of communicating your concerns about this issue is speaking to your state representative and speaking to your state senator. Believe me, they love hearing from college students. They really, really do, because a majority of the 18 to 25-year-olds and even 18 to 35-year-olds don't get involved enough with their state and local governments. And they want to hear our side of it. It's up to us as student leaders to give our side of it. So if you don't know who your state senator is or state representative, it's very easy to find out. They have Project Vote Smart, they have other websites that you could use. And it's very easy to get a hold of them. Send emails, phone calls. So that's my recommendation. If you need any help on my end, please let me know after the meeting. Thank you.
What about the new uniform instruction situation? Is that coming up as well? Because you got outstate, in-state, and then the part that's the MPN, I believe. For
MTP.
Huh?
The MTP,
Yes.
Metropolitan Tuition Program.
Is that going up too as well?
I don't have statistics on that.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone, maybe wasn't as familiar with the situation. So while the board of higher ed did vote, on approving the whole package, their whole proposal, it still, again, has to be voted on and finalized, so it's not like this is the end of the line for this, and there's probably gonna be changes, at some point along its lifetime, so this doesn't mean like call them and like hope for the best. This means call them and you can maybe, I hope, very much hope that you can affect change. So I agree with Representative Sears as well. Call your representative, talk to your friends, have them email their representative if they don't feel comfortable calling them. There are ways to talk about this and have a healthy conversation about what you want from your local government and from your higher education.
Thank you. Administrative Representative Dr.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A couple things I just wanted to correct or clarify. So, first of all, I would say that if President Sanchez was here tonight, he would be very excited and interested in this debate and would be appreciative that students, you care about this issue because he comes from a student affairs background. He likes to empower students. He likes to hear student feedback. And you may or may not know, students unfortunately are notorious at not voting and I'm not saying you and I'm not saying our students, but just sort of students nationwide are notorious at just sort of not really being heard or not really using their vote or their voice to speak out. Now, one thing I know that he would want me to say if he were here is that the tuition, hopefully everybody understands or knows that for several years prior to this tuition increase, there was no tuition increase at Rhode Island College. So, he would, certainly that doesn't justify an increase, but I suspect he would say, had we had small increases over the last 3 years, that we would have maybe not had to ask for an increase this year or ask for a much, much smaller increase than we did. The other thing is he would want to make sure that everybody understood that he agrees that higher education should not be funded on the backs of students, and in fact the budget that was submitted to the Post-Secondary Council for approval and was approved includes a significant increase in contribution of state dollars, much more than what we would pick up from the tuition increase for students. So we're actually asking more from taxpayers than we are from students. Again, that may not sort of totally justify asking students for any money. I'm not saying that. I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands those 2 points. And then lastly, just to reiterate or sort of maybe add to Representative DeVideo's comments. So the process now is that the budget that was approved by the Post-Secondary Council goes to the governor for approval. She can make changes at that level, and then ultimately it goes to the state legislature for approval, and they can make changes as well. I have to tell you, I'll say personally, I am quietly, I'm optimistic that it would be approved. One thing that I would really concerns me is that somebody would, at any of those levels, would take the opportunity to say, well, if the college is getting more money from students, it needs then maybe less money from the taxpayers, and actually decreases the state appropriation to our tax. I think that's the biggest concern. So when people say around this table that your voices need to be heard and you still need to, the issue is not over. It's not over for a lot of different reasons, because you certainly don't, maybe you're not in support of the tuition increase, but you certainly don't want to see any decrease in state appropriation as well. Thank you.
Secretary Smith.
Referencing to Representative Mello's question earlier, because the MTP tuition amount is a percentage, if our regular tuition increases, that would also increase.
Thank you.
Representative Dave.
So after the meeting, we spoke with Jim Purcell, who was the Commissioner of Secondary Education in the state,
don't know the numbers, yeah,
So
sorry.
it was
I know it's a big number.
It was 2/3 of it was coming from tuition increases and the additional 1/3 was from the state. And that's, in my mind, totally unacceptable and should be fought in every way possible. So just keep that in mind. Call your representatives and senators. That's all. Thank you.
Representative Alvarez.
I know that this college wants to increase the number of out-of-state students, but wouldn't this increase in tuition decrease the number of out-of-state students and will force them to go elsewhere for college? That's all I have to say.
Representative Video.
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the numbers that Representative Dave talked about. So this doesn't just affect RIC, this affects all the public institutions in Rhode Island. So the 30 million is in total, and that's not like broken down by institution. So in total, all the public student, that's what everybody say, public institution students will have to pay 20 million, while in total they would just be asking 10 million from the state. That isn't broken down by institution, so RIC could, I haven't seen those numbers, but could be asking for a larger percentage from the state than from the students. But this, again, doesn't just affect us here, it affects kids at URI, the kids at CCRI, and us here as well, so.
Speaker Hurd.
When I've told people about the increase, the out-of-state compared to the in-state, they've said, oh, well, we don't have many out-of-state students. And I'm like, that's not an argument. That's not an argument. They need our help too. They need to be spoken for. They need to not get this huge increase to their tuition because they choose RIC rather than their home state's institutions because it's cheaper. If you make it more expensive, they're not going to go here anymore. They're going to go to whatever community college is closest to them, whatever is most, in line with their budget that's close to them. And if we want to keep getting, out-of-state students to increase the diversity of our college just by having other people from, our neighboring states, that brings the culture. That brings, people from Boston that live in the city, people that live on the Cape, people that live maybe, I know somebody that lives in Mystic, Connecticut. That's cool. We need people like that. That's all.
Representative Nella.
When is this going to be happening?
This will take effect next year.
Representative Dave.
So, about the out-of-state thing, they are all of our constituents as well. And in past meetings, we've discussed how the new administration is actually trying to increase the numbers of out-of-state students. And that is good for the college in terms of diversity, getting people from different geographic locations, having their viewpoint rather than just Rhode Island is a great thing. However, I think the real reason that they're pushing for that is because they pay more money in tuition and they generally stay at the school, so they have to pay more in board and stuff like that. So their concerns should be of the utmost importance to us as well, and we should not ignore them. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? With no further discussion, we move on to item 10 on the agenda, updates and remarks.
We'll begin with item A, administration update. Dr. Scott King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple of quick things. Final exams, best wishes, everyone, on your final exams. Start on Tuesday, the 13th of December, running through the 19th. One important date to note is actually the day before final exams begin. That's the last day for students to withdraw from classes and not get a grade assigned by the faculty member. But I'm not promoting that people withdraw from classes, but if you know folks who are thinking about it, struggling, whatever, having issues, haven't been in school, it becomes a mess to try to clean up if they don't get it done ahead of time. The college, as you probably know, and President Sanchez has been talking about this, has been looking to hire a couple of individuals in the area of diversity, specifically an associate vice president for community equity and diversity. And we've already had one finalist on campus for an interview. During those interviews, there's typically an open forum. And there's another finalist scheduled to be on campus tomorrow. So the open forum for everybody to attend, faculty, staff, and students, is at 11 a.m. In Alex and Ani, room 210, up the stairs. And then the third finalist for the associate vice president position is coming to campus on, I think it's Monday the 5th. The open forum is at noon, and that's in Alex and Ani 138. So as student leaders, certainly some of you should try to attend and provide your feedback, because there'll be an opportunity to fill out an evaluation form and provide your feedback to the college on those two positions. We actually had finalists for the director of equity or inclusion, and director of inclusion, I think is the title. On campus the last couple of days, there was two finalists. They had, so those interviews are done. But you'll recall this body passed a resolution for an LGBTQ coordinator. Neither of those two positions are exactly it, but I think it could lend support to the work for our LGBTQ population. So hopefully you'll be able to make the open forums for the AVP candidates. And then one other program I wanted to bring to your attention is that there's a post-election processing and reflection forum scheduled for Tuesday, December 6th at 12 noon in the Faculty Center main dining room, if anybody is interested in sort of talking about looking back at the election, talking about the results, and kind of maybe what impact that might have on the country, higher education, on our particular campus. Please feel free to attend that. That concludes my remarks, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We move on to item B. Dr. Brophy Behrman has taken advantage of her standing early leave. Move on to staff update. Mr. Mark Delucci.
I just have one question for the body. The president will have an inauguration in February. There's some dates I think that have just recently come out. I'm not sure of the dates. It sounds like February 13th or so, or the week of the 13th. It's usually 3-4 days of activities and a series of maybe lectures, parties. There's some ceremonial things. This is my fourth one in my career. It is a big to-do for a presidential inauguration. There'll be another one in January for our president of the United States, but is there any discussion with this body or the members of the body regarding the inauguration? If anybody can chime in, because it's usually quite a bit of also student participation also.
If you'd like to discuss, please raise your cards. Secretary Cepeda.
So I know in the past, student government was involved with the inauguration of President Cariola, and Jose and I are on the committee with Patty Nolan to participate in that week in February.
Representative Sears.
Good luck to the president on his inauguration. God bless him.
Is there any further discussion? Back to you, Mr. Delucci.
Right, I think the Dr. King showed me the calendar. I think the actual inauguration date is the February 17th, so it happens pretty soon once you guys come back. I think a lot of the planning will be, a lot of students are on break, so I would hope there's some student participation even though it's break time. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to alumni update. Representative Putin would like to discuss.
Just a really quick add-on. If there are additional thoughts about the inauguration or ideas from Parliament members, I'm on the Committee of Convocations that's helping planning this event, and would love any ideas if they come up later on. And just think of it.
Thank you. We move on to item D, alumni update. Mr. Nicholas Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple quick updates. The Young Alumni Committee recently met, and we had a very productive meeting. We're actually planning to hold another gathering in early January, probably before classes here resume. And at some point, not too long thereafter, not during the month of the inauguration, but either just prior or just after, we will be holding an event with young alumni, and also going to be inviting student leaders at some point. And one aim of the Young Alumni Committee is going to be to have more of a direct connection between young alums and current students in order to get them familiarized with the Alumni Association and what the roles are and hopefully guide them into that association when they do leave the college. Of course, all alumni are by default members of the Alumni Association, but one thing that we're trying to do, and I think one of the main objectives for the Young Alumni Group is to be more proactive in recruiting students, particularly active students on campus, and keeping them involved even after their academic careers have ended. I'm also on the communications committee for the alumni board. That actually hasn't met in quite some time, a number of years. It's going to be meeting a week from tonight, actually, prior to the SCG holiday party, I believe. So I'll be attending that meeting and reporting back to this body what kind of new communication endeavors the alumni board is going to be embarking upon next year. One other point, this is actually along the lines of an issue I've brought up frequently throughout the semester in terms of recruitment of this body. I've said that 30 students I think is a very reasonable target. It wouldn't be a full parliament, but I think it's something that we've gotten to in the past, and if you all set a goal of that for yourselves for the remainder of the year, I think you can definitely get there, perhaps even by spring break of next year. But along those lines, does anyone around this room, without looking at the bylaws, can anyone tell me how many resident student seats are supposed to be on this body?
Is there anyone who is able to answer his request for information?
I believe it's one for every residence hall.
It's actually 8 total. It's 2 for New Hall, 1 each for the remainder of residence halls, and 1 at-large resident, which is a pretty easy seat to fill since you can get any resident to sign it. This just popped in my head because the RSA representative was giving their conference report earlier tonight. It wasn't really appropriate for me to ask a question at that time, but if anyone here lives on campus and has friends that are residents, this is an ideal time to ask them as they get ready to come back next semester to consider joining student community government. Residents are just like commuters, just like everyone else, play a major role in this campus. We saw a big uptick in student activity on campus after New Hall was constructed a few years ago. And I think it's important that those resident seats be targeted by this body as priority seats to be filled. Because you can get a lot of engagement and really get a lot of cross activity between student government and RSA and the residents on campus. So I think if the student government body has goals in terms of recruitment, filling up those resident seats should be a very top priority early next semester. Thank you, Mrs. Speaker.
Thank you. We now move on to item 11, appointments, resignations, and vacancies. Vice President Zapasnik.
Okay, so we will be appointing to the ad hoc committee on faculty staff choice ceremony. We did the video as chair. 2 student parliament representatives, Gabriella Enright and Ms. McGeary. 2 non-parliament representatives, Lily Gallo and Madison Sharkey. PR Director Veronica Brimpong. Student Organizations Coordinator Jason Windrop. Media Center Representative Taylor Dame. Club Representative Michelle Arias. To the college committees, we are appointing Taylor Dame to the Academic Integrity. Leandro Alvarez to the Calendar Committee. Gabrielle Enright to the Student Design Course and Concentration Subcommittee. Ryan Chadwick to the Traffic and Parking Committee. And we would like to remind you that there is a new advisory board here at Brown College, the Dining Services Advisory Board, also known as DSAB. There will be 3 community members who will be appointed by the president of SCG, one of which shall be a member of parliament. And during their terms, students must be in good academic standing. Undergraduates must be taking 9 credits minimum, and graduate students must be taking 6 credits minimum. Thank you. And there are no resignations or vacancies.
I am seeking a motion to approve these appointments. Motion from Representative Sears. I'm seeking a second to approve these. Second from Representative Video. Any discussion on these appointments? If no discussion, move to a vote. All those in favor of approving these appointments, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, the appointments are approved. We'll now move on to item 12, issues of parliament members. If you have an issue, please visit your card. Secretary Cepeda.
I forgot to mention earlier that College Dining Services is also co-sponsoring with us for the finals coffee break that we're going to be hosting. And if anyone would like to help out during any of those dates, the 13th, 14th, or 15th, from 12 p.m. to whenever coffee runs out, I will be there all 3 days. And I know everybody's busy with finals, but if you have a break, just come by and help out. We're going to be handing out coffee to students. And if it's raining, we're going to have a pop-up tent, so we'll still be there. Thank you.
Representative Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to reiterate the points I made earlier. It's very important that we communicate effectively with our state senators, state representatives, about matters regarding tuition increases and things like that. Doesn't have to be under the SCG name. I think it might even be discovered depending on certain things, depending on what the rules are in that respect. But that would be a question for either the speaker or the president. However, it's important that if it's an issue that's important to you and important to your constituents, that you express those concerns effectively and clearly with the appropriate authorities. I'm willing to help any way I can. Thanks.
Representative DeVideo.
I just wanted to maybe ask the body how they feel about the whole process of conference reports and stuff like that. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk about conferences that clubs were sent on, and talk about them with the parliament body. I'm sorry, I wrote down what I was going to say before. The rules about how they're funded and how the conference report affects your funding for the following year. I think that I understand that the way to change these rules would be a long process and probably not take effect until next year. But if you don't submit a conference report, you get your funding cut for next year for any other conferences you want to go on, which seems kind of, I don't want to say pointless, but arbitrary, considering most clubs have a new e-board the following year. So it's almost as if you're punishing possibly a brand new club for the mistake of an e-board who left at the end of the year, before anyone came into office. And again, I understand the point of having a conference report and being able to represent it and present it to the body and talk about what you've learned. But that just seems like an odd rule to have for clubs that have especially executive board turnover the following year. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. There's no discussion during issues of parliament members, so it's limited to a single person's issue. Next on the list is Treasurer Lima.
I just want to wish everyone a safe and happy winter break. It's the last meeting of the semester, believe it or not. And good luck on finals. We will do well. And I hope to see most of you next week in the office, still working on your committees and at the holiday party.
Thank you. Representative Dane.
So I have a couple. So today, Vector Marketing was in the student union, handing out flyers, recruiting people. I think this is a particular interest to Representative Sears, and I think we're in agreement here that they shouldn't be allowed on campus. And I'd love to work on a resolution expressing that, because I think it's disgusting what they do personally. Second, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but walking through the little quad here between the media center and the student union, when it rains, there are giant puddles out there. I don't know who to talk to about working on drainage and flooding, but it's ridiculous over there. Again, on conference reports, perhaps working on a way of standardizing them. We had 3 today that were all very different, and frankly, one was very detailed and probably didn't need to be that detailed, despite how very good it was. Dr. Brophy-Merman probably would have brought this up, but the political science department is having their holiday party on December 7th from 12 to 1:30 in Craigley 224, and you're all invited to come. There's free food and free t-shirts, so everyone loves free things, so come on in. And last night or 2 nights ago, a student was hit by a car outside of Thorpe Hall. I think perhaps this body should look into safety in the crosswalk area over there between the residence halls and the rest of the campus again, and work with the administration on that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kane.
Thank you. Next on the list?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I forgot one really important announcement. On Tuesday, December 13th, the Student Affairs Division is going to host our second annual late night breakfast. This is where the president and the members of the Student Affairs Division will serve breakfast to whoever comes in the door of the Donovan Dining Center. It's free of charge. You don't have to just be a resident student. Anybody that wants to stop by. We used to do it. We did it at midnight previously. Anybody attend last time? Just one person? Wow. Fun event though, but we're not gonna do it at midnight. We're gonna start it at 10. So we actually get to go home by midnight for those of us who actually have to go to work the next day. But please put that on your calendar. It's very fun.
Point of information, what date is that?
Tuesday, December 13th.
Thank you.
Is that all for your issues?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hurd.
I just wanted to make a contribution to Representative on the video. Just the concerns that you brought up earlier. Also being an individual who started his own student organization on campus, I would want to encourage others to want to outreach, look at different conferences in which they would like to attend, and maybe this rule may be just like from a new organization who might not be familiarized with the rules or not getting deadlines in on time. It might be a little harsh, or not, I don't want to say harsh, but discouraging if funds were cut for the next year. So I would agree with you, and I'd like to just add the new student organization perspective in that to your opinion.
Thank you. Next on the list is Speaker Hurd. My issue comes from one of my classmates. Last week, she stepped in a 3-inch puddle, and this week she did it again. And I asked why, and she said, "Oh, because it's not well lit." She parks near the the rec center over on East Campus, and she said she didn't see the puddle, and she stepped in it twice. And I think that is a major issue that possibly even more students have been facing if you don't see that puddle. And that is all for my issue. Next on the list is Representative Sears.
Hi, it's me again. Just two things. Number one, I forgot, as always, this is our last meeting of the semester, so everyone stay safe, enjoy your break, good luck on your exams, salute, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hope to see you all at the holiday party coming up next week. Secondly, also following up with Representative Dean, the people that, I've seen it a lot coming in. I leave very early, I come in very early in the morning, and I leave relatively late in the evening here. People drive terribly. A lot of people here drive terribly. And I'm not saying this to be funny, I'm saying it because it's just very dangerous. When you're driving like 25 miles an hour through a parking lot or through just the campus itself, driving from Mount Pleasant Avenue down to Fruit Hill and vice versa, they're flying. And first of all, stay safe. Don't, look both ways, all the things you learn in elementary school. If you see someone driving like that, if it's someone that you know, pull them aside and say, what's the matter with you? And, all I know is, look again, stay safe, and I know if anyone hits me, there's gonna be a fleet of Lincoln Town cars with lawyers in them. Like that. So with that said,
Secretary Cepeda.
Great, so referencing the conference report issues that clubs are having, those were put in place to make sure that
Point
clubs are.
of order.
Please state your points.
Are we debating conference reports, or do we just want to put that on an agenda for the new business? And what's the?
You are correct. We are not debating conference reports. This is issues of Parliament members. Secretary Cepeda.
I'll rephrase. If you think there's a better way, please come up and see us, and we can talk about how we can hold clubs accountable for their conferences.
Thank you. Is there any further issues of Parliament members? No further issues. I am seeking a motion to adjourn. Motion from Deputy Speaker Almeida, second from Vice President Zapasnik. There is no discussion of adjournment. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Abstentions? With that, we are adjourned. Please stay silent and seated while Ms. Kovac reads roll call.
Jose Rosario, Maria Zapasnik, Laurie Cepeda,
Here.
Thomas Lima,
Here.
Patrick Hurd,
Here.
Kathryn Almeida, Leandro Alvarez,
Here.
Jeremy Lewin,
Here.
Taylor Hay, Lisa Tividio, here, Gabrielle Enright, here, Shayla Mello, Vanessa Ruggieri, here, David Sears,
Here.
Daniel Seavey,
Here.
Cassidy Stewart, Scott Kane,
Here.
Michelle Berthier,